Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm painting Topiary, and as a little bonus I've added a view and a stone path. I hope you enjoy the video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up, share and subscribe. That helps my channel grow and I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. I did a rough sketch on my 9x12 canvas panel. I'm going to be using acrylic paint, and the first thing I'm going to do is put in my cloud. And I want you to think of this more as a guideline than a sketch. You don't have to paint inside the lines. It's just to let me know where everything is going to be, where my horizon line is, where my distance, middle and foreground are. This is my palette. It's the one I paint almost all my pictures with. I add other colors occasionally. I'm using titanium white, primary yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, French ultramarine blue, sap green and alizarin crimson. I think in this case I may have added hooker's green because I think I ran out of sap green. Yeah, I think this is hooker's green, this one. Now, as I said, this is just a guideline. I started with my sky. I could just have easily started with my water, but I usually paint from the top of my canvas down to the base. And when I do water, it evolves. That's the best I can say of it. I usually start off with some blues, and it evolves throughout my painting. That's the best I can say. I'm painting a headland. I've put some green in my blue puddle. I'm painting a little headland just to give something in the distance for your eye to latch onto. At this point, I'm just getting my canvas covered with a mid-tone paint. I'm putting in my lighthouse in the distance. It will be a red and white lighthouse, but I'm putting on the white paint first, and a little island underneath it, or perhaps it's a peninsula and you can't see all of it. Maybe some of it's underwater like a causeway. We have to use our imagination a little bit here. Now I'm imagining that we're looking out across a lawn, a beautiful green lawn, and I'm mixing primary yellow, hooker's green and a touch of raw sienna to bring the colors down a little bit, just to take the brightness out a little bit and make it more grass colored. You can do that with a brown or you can do it with a red. Either works, and that gives me a nice grassy color. And I'm going to paint all that in. It's not the last thing I will do with it for sure, and it doesn't matter which way the stroke goes. You can do it horizontally or vertically. I usually end up mishmashing it and then doing horizontal strokes across before the paint dries. Acrylics do dry very quickly. I feel the most important thing to do is to get your canvas entirely covered in mid-tone, and then you can go back and work putting in your shadows and your highlights. That will give you a good solid painting. The more tonal values that you get in, the more interesting your painting is going to look. But just the three, a mid-tone, a highlight and a shadow, will make your painting look quite good. Using raw sienna, titanium white, and I think I put a little red in there, maybe some yellow. I'm sorry I didn't show you what I was doing, but I mixed up a sandy color for my path. I'm going to lay stones over that, some kind of flagstone. That's what I'm thinking of them as. But I'm putting a base down of a sort of sandy gravel. I could just leave it like this as a sandy path, but I want to show you how to do flagstones, how I do flagstones at any rate. It's an interesting element for the painting. I'm mixing up a mid-tone green with primary yellow, hooker's green and a little titanium white, and I'm going to paint the topiary. I paint the entire thing in the mid-tone, and then I add my highlights and shadows after. Actually, I add shadow and then highlight. I always do it in that order, or mostly do it in that order, because it keeps me straight. I know what I'm doing. I can complete my painting in a reasonable time. And this works well. I'm painting in acrylics. The paint will dry almost as soon as I put it on there, so the colors won't be mixing very much. If you're painting with oils, water mixable oils or anything like that, the paint is still wet and you tend to mix the paint colors on the canvas. It's a slightly different technique. I love painting in water mixable oils, to be honest, but acrylics are fun because you can make any changes that you want very easily. I'm going to paint the pots next, and I'm making them terracotta, I think. They could be stone, whatever you like, but I've decided on terracotta. I'm using raw sienna and alizarin crimson, and I'll be adding primary yellow to that and titanium white until I get the color, the right shade. But basically it's the alizarin crimson and the primary yellow with the raw sienna that give it that terracotta color. This is my mid-tone that I'm putting on now. As I said, I cover my whole canvas in mid-tone paint, and it's a very rough stage. It's what I think of as an adolescent stage of the painting. It doesn't get refined until the next stage, when we start putting on the shadow and the highlight. And sometimes for that, I straighten up the edges by using a paint marker. I didn't do that with this picture, but I do with some pictures. Paint markers are very handy. I've added a little raw umber to bring it down a bit, and I'm going to use this color for the stones. They won't stay that color. I'll be adding lighter tones, and as with all elements of the painting, it's something that evolves. I will probably put titanium white on top of them, maybe some sunny spots, maybe some shady spots. They evolve, that's the best word for it. One thing you'll notice is that the path leads your eye right into the middle of the painting toward the lighthouse in the distance. And that's what you want to do. You want to arrange the elements of your painting to do something to keep the eye in the painting. You don't want birds, for instance, flying out toward the edges. They will take your eye out of the painting. I've decided the light is coming from the right, so I'm putting my shadow on the left of the topiaries. And I'm using French ultramarine in the hooker's green just to make it that much darker. I mix everything in the puddle in the middle of my palette, and I don't often remove any paint from that. I just continue as I go along. I just keep adding more color to the pool. The light is coming from the right, and so the topiary on the right will be casting a shadow. I like to keep my shadows fairly indefinite. I don't want anything too strong, because that will grab your eye and hold it in that spot. And the whole idea of this painting is to bring your eye into it, circulate it around, so that you see everything there is to see in this painting. Sometimes you have to look quite carefully to make sure that you have every part of shadow in there that should be in there. The stems of the topiary, or trunks of the topiary. The lighthouse throws a shadow. The island itself has a little shadow side. The pots will have a shadow side. I sometimes have to sit and just contemplate for a little while and decide where my shadows will fall. I'm mixing titanium white and primary yellow into my pool of green to give me a very pale color for the highlight on the topiary. It's quite a smooth stroke that you're seeing here, and it could stay like that, but I probably will go in later with a bristle brush and make it more leafy, more textured. I like to see my topiaries more textured than this. And I'm putting a highlight on the pots as well. It all looks a little on the rough side, but don't forget, as you go on, you refine things. You tidy up little pieces. As I said, I usually use paint pens to tidy or draw lines that are very fine. I put some highlight on my flagstones. It looks a little bit yellow. My lighthouse is red and white. I've used alizarin crimson to put on the red stripe. I'm not sure where I got that idea from. I must have seen a lighthouse like that somewhere, and I think it's very attractive. It draws your eye straight to it. I'm using just a little curl of titanium white for the sail of a sailboat and a little dot of raw umber for the transom. You don't need to put in much detail, it's just a suggestion. Another little trick I should tell you is to take off paint. You can use a wet paintbrush, just damp, not really a lot of water in it, and just use that, swipe it. I swiped mine around the sail as you saw there, and it just took off a little tiny edge of the paint. It's important to remember the direction of light in a painting. It makes or breaks a painting, and you can make that decision right up until you've got your mid-tones on, and then you have to decide where the highlight is going to be or where the shadow is going to be, and you have to be consistent throughout the painting. It's important to put a line of shadow under the pots to set them on the ground, otherwise they look like they're floating in midair. It doesn't matter what you're doing, a vase on a table, an object on a table, anything that needs to be standing on something needs a shadow underneath it. You can't get away without that. I'm using a bristle brush, a large round bristle, and I'm going to liven up the topiary starting on the shadow side. I've added French ultramarine blue, and I'm going to make these topiary look a little more leafy and lively. Now I'm going to put in some scrubby grasses using a fan brush, a bristle fan brush. Try saying that. I like this tool very much. It gives a lot of liveliness to a picture, and I especially like this bristle brush. I've had it many years, and it's a bit beat up, to tell you the truth, but it gives a lovely effect. You can use the fan brush flat for things like grasses, And you can turn it on its edge and use it for shrubs, for things that you want to be a bit taller. I'm using it for shrubs in this case, and I'm going to add some colour to it to make some flowers along the edge of the path. I'm using a different bristle brush here. It's a very old one, very choppy, and I'm just sort of putting in some stubby bits around the base of the pots and along the path. If you're brave enough, you can take a pair of scissors to a brush and give it a little character. I do that occasionally. This particular brush is working well for trees in the distance and topiary leaves. You might call it a handcrafted brush. I'm going to use this liner brush and put in some stems on the shrub at the end of the path. Liner brush is good for anything like that. I think it's also called a rigger, and that's because it used to be used to put in the lines on yachts in the old days. I think that's the reason it's called a rigger. You can Google it, I'm sure. I've decided to reinforce my shadows a little bit. That's what this stage of the painting is all about. Taking a look, see if you need to make your highlights lighter, your shadows darker. See if you need to eliminate something completely and ruthlessly from your painting, or add something that it's needed. You have to stand back and contemplate your painting for a little while. Have a cup of tea, stare at it, and decide what needs to be done next, if anything. I think I'm more or less done with this painting. I quite like it. It gives me the feeling of a seaside house that has a slightly neglected shorefront. They haven't mowed the grass in a while, and the topiaries are getting a bit long in the tooth. I like it. It has a nice seaside air to it. I have a favourite colour that I like to see in all my paintings, alizarin crimson. I feel it makes the painting pop, adds a liveliness to the painting that isn't otherwise there. I can also get that effect from French ultramarine blue in some spots, and those are my two favourite colours for adding to my painting. And sometimes I like to add phthalo colours, phthalo green, phthalo blue. They are also very lively colours. Well, I'm happy with that. It was fun to do. I hope you enjoyed the video as well. If you did, please think of giving me a like, a subscribe, and share with your friends, because that helps my channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. And I'll see you next time, and thank you very much for watching.